Fame on one hand and anonymity on the other hand. These two things will crush most men. Not every single time. Not everybody who becomes famous also becomes corrupt. Some men, by God's grace, are able to sustain their responsibility and their integrity and so forth. But usually anonymity and fame are going to crush a lot of men, and that includes pastoral ministers. Now, a lot of us are still thinking about the Josh Buice situation and how it is that he led to his own downfall by acting out in this sort of anonymous trolling way on his Twitter feeds and his Substack accounts and so forth, attacking colleagues and even elders in his own church. Why would he do that? Well, as I was thinking about the story and reflecting more deeply upon it, I recalled the story of Gyges' ring from Plato's Republic. Now, it's a bit of an interesting story, so hang with me and I'm going to make some pretty strong connections here to the present situation. So in the Republic, they're discussing the nature of a just society and what justice might truly be like. Of course, Socrates and through him, Plato, are always interested in defining such terms. What would a just society look like? Well, one of the interlocutors in the Republic reminds Socrates of the story of Gyges' ring, and here's the mythology that goes along with it. It's a bit strange, but hang with me. I promise this will pay some dividends in a moment. So in the story of Gyges' ring, there's a torrential downfall of rain, and because of the rain, a strange bronze horse is discovered to be existing in the side of the hill. Well, Gyges goes up to examine the strange bronze horse, as any curious person probably would, and realizes that there's a door in the side of the horse that opens up. It's actually a box, and in it, there is this ring. And so Gyges takes the ring for himself, of course, and he begins to fiddle with it, putting it on this way and that. And he realizes when the amulet is facing outward on the ring, everything is normal and he's visible. But when he turns the ring around, it gives Gyges the strange power of invisibility. Now, curious, of course, about this invisibility power, he goes along to take advantage of the power that it brings. And so, first of all, he begins to steal things from the market. Now, he wouldn't have stolen if people could see him, but because he's invisible, he's going to get away with it. But then, of course, it gets worse and worse and more twisted as then he begins to sexually impose himself on women. He can grope them, touch them, look at them without them knowing that it's him. Ultimately, what Gyges does is he goes to the king's palace itself, and he's going to take the queen, he's going to impose himself upon her, and then he's going to slay the king and try to take the kingdom for himself. Now, in the story of the Republic, the point is obvious that justice is maintained as long as accountability is held, but whenever people have power in which they're no longer held accountable, that's when they're going to act according to their baser, weaker, more wicked impulses. Now, how does this tie into the Josh Buice situation? Well, of course, Josh Buice thought he had Gyges' ring. He thought he had the power of anonymity. In his troll accounts and his Substacks, he's going to attack these people rather than lovingly confronting them. He's going to take the easy way out and try to tear people down rather than build people up. And when this was found out, of course, one of the things that becomes obvious, once again, the story is true. Gyges' ring is a true story in the sense that most people cannot handle the power of true anonymity. Now, the irony is that you might think that the opposite then would produce better men. So what's the opposite of anonymity? Well, fame. But here again, we find out that's not true either. Because whenever men attain some kind of fame, then what happens is they begin to exceed the strata of the accountability of their regular relationships. In other words, they begin to act in ways as though they're unstoppable, even though everybody can see them and they're acting out in plain sight. So Mark Driscoll with his William Wallace II accounts early on in Mars Hill, he has Gyges' ring den, and of course he acts impulsively. Later on, when he begins to gain almost unstoppable fame power once again, his baser instincts are unrestrained, leading, of course, to his eventual downfall. And so also we can multiply examples. We could talk about Ravi Zacharias. We could talk about Steve Lawson. We could talk about so many other pastors. But here's the point of me reminding you of the story of Gyges' ring and the powers of corruption of both anonymity and fame. Brothers, most of us cannot handle these things. If God should give you fame, you better pray every single day that you don't destroy your marriage, your church, your relationships, your responsibilities, your integrity, your reputation. Because believe me, fame has this sort of soul-crushing power that it makes men feel as though they're unstoppable, when in fact they're very stoppable. And the very moment that God in his sovereignty ordains and decrees that your fame has come to an end, it will come crashing down. And similarly, though, on the opposite side of the spectrum, if you act in such ways as though you're anonymous, well, the problem, of course, is that God alone sees the heart. And even if you should get away with it from the eyes of men, of course, the Lord is ultimately going to hold you into accountability. And so at the end of the day, very few people are going to be able to sustain the soul-crushing powers of fame on one hand and anonymity on the others. So what is the solution to this? How can we avoid both dangers? How can we avoid the rocks on one hand and the deep waters on the other hand? That old famous analogy of Scylla and Charybdis, the two monsters that can destroy you on either end. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the only way that we can actually avoid both the crushing powers of anonymity and fame is that we would live in that via media of real, actual, relatable accountability experiences, that we would live very authentically before brothers who can actually hold us accountable in our daily lives. Now, thankfully, I'm Presbyterian. Some of you are, some of you are not. One of the things that I like about that, as a minister myself, okay, should I be drawn to the powers of fame? Should I be drawn to the secrecy of an anonymity? I hope not. And in fact, what I'm trusting and counting on is that not necessarily you, the viewer, but my real accountability partners, i.e. the elders of my local church, would help to hold me accountable. I have brothers in my lives that watch me. I have brothers with whom I bear my soul. I have brothers and friendships in the church that I confess my temptations to, and that we have real, authentic, soul-bearing conversations with on a regular basis. You have to have that. And thankfully, Presbyterianism, one thing I like about it is that that's baked into the system. It's an inborn strength of the system itself. It's a feature, not a bug. I have elders that will keep me accountable. Believe me, if I go astray, I have 12 brothers here at this church that are going to hold me accountable to what I do, to what I say, even things that I say on this here YouTube channel. Now, some of you have asked me whenever I've spoken out against celebrity pastors and against fame and so forth, well, Everhard, aren't you the hypocrite? Because here you are with this YouTube channel with some nearly X amount of followers, or however you have. Well, listen, there's not a day when that doesn't actually scare me. It does scare me, which is why I try to steer into the real, actual relationships I have with living, breathing people, especially the elders of my own church. This is why, again, and I hate to keep bringing this up, that I'm not into the conference circuit concept. Neither do I want to speak at it, nor do I want to attend them. The real relationships in my life, the powerful relationships, the gritty ones, the one where there's strain and accountability and tension and we argue and we exhort and we encourage each other, these are not going to be the anonymous people online. They're not going to be the thousands that watch the videos to try to hold me accountable by their comments or so forth. It's going to be the real people that know me, that actually know me. And so I would just encourage you, if you are an anon out there, anonymously carrying on as though nobody is keeping you accountable, of course, the eyes of the true and living God always will. But brothers, simultaneously, I have to encourage you, please do not pursue fame either. What you need to pursue is that safe way, the way right down the middle of real, tangible, multiplicitous, plenteous relationships with as many people as you can authentically bear your real self. But certainly the kinds of people that will not be yes men to you, but will be the kinds of people that can challenge, provoke, encourage, rebuke, and sometimes even just come alongside you in the moments that you are weak. Brothers, Gaiji's ring is a myth, but the power of anonymity will crush your soul. So too fame. Thanks for checking into this video. Love you lots. Talk to you later.